Hello to you who's watching this right now. Thank you so much for being here. I thought today would be a really nice time to talk about how I personally deal with loneliness. I know it's a deep topic, but I feel it's something that almost everyone can relate to at some point in their lives, whether they're an introvert or extrovert. And I personally identify with somewhat of the ambivert category, but more often than not leaning towards introversion, and sometimes dipping into the lone wolf category. So to start, I feel like loneliness to me is a perceived void. And I say perceived because whenever such a feeling pops up, I like to ask myself, is this void really existing within me? Or am I really truly feeling empty right now, even though I'm feeling such a state of lack? And that brings me to my first method of how I deal with loneliness, which is actually to not do that so much. Actually, while questioning my heavy feelings it proves to be an effective method sometimes, but the problem is I do it way too much. And what I really need to do more often is feel it to release it. And so this is something that I struggle with. I am very good at intellectualizing and analyzing my feelings and my psyche and thinking of ways to improve them, but I rarely am comfortable with sitting with a heavy emotion and feeling it all the way and being patient with that and just letting it run its course and pass through me. So a tarot reader did eventually give me explicit advice that it would be really good for me to, the next time I'm feeling, for example, loneliness, to sit with it, be patient with it, and stick with it and just feel it. And the advice was also that feeling these more difficult emotions fully, especially loneliness, just feeling it all the way, is what's really gonna help me heal from my much deeper inner states of lack, which I seldom attend to because every time they arise, I don't allow them to stay for very long, and I'm very good at sweeping them under the carpet. And so yeah, that's just like one of my talents, I guess. Like, I find that it's easy for me to rise from dark depths of like heavy emotions to get to, like, whenever I'm feeling a difficult emotion, I would immediately start searching for ways to bring me back to that lighter state of abundant being. And I would pep talk myself a lot, but in a way, sometimes it can be toxic positivity and it might just slip my awareness. And it's funny because I think that I'm not being toxically positive. Like, I think that yes, I'm feeling this right now. What can I do now to better it? And the problem lies in the eagerness of that second question, being so quick to jump to wanting to improve myself or to uplift myself instead of just letting the heavy feeling run its course. So that was what I didn't realize I needed. So the first time I tried to apply this advice was when it was a bout of loneliness that was arising for me, and I was like, okay, let's take this to the yoga mat, let's lie flat and just be there and exist and see what is there to process. That's just personally my favorite way of like integrating things that are happening either in my body, in my psyche, or in the external circumstances of my life. I like to just lie flat on my mat. That's my personal sacred space that feels safe, where anything that needs to flow through can just flow. And actually, before the mat, there was another first block that I had to move past, which was my hesitance to not admit to myself that I feel lonely sometimes, which is so, in a way, it's cruel to myself because me putting myself above feeling lonely somehow is not allowing myself to be human. And it's only because I like to view myself as someone who is self-sufficient and independent and not really needing to rely on other people, which is not very healthy, by the way. So yeah, that was an initial stage that I had to move past, letting myself even admit that I can feel lonely, and also letting go of the shame, because I feel like it's shame that doesn't allow me to feel the loneliness. And yeah, it was just a lot of self-talk again, and telling myself that it is okay to feel lonely. There's nothing to be ashamed about it. So yeah, shame is very interesting. But I feel like even with just a few words of consolation to my inner child, telling them that it is okay to feel lonely, I feel like that shame did dissolve fairly easily, because once the shame is faced and looked at, it doesn't scream as loud anymore. It doesn't demand as much of a space anymore in my being. When I look at it and acknowledge it and be like, okay, well, thanks for being here, but I actually don't really need to feel shame right now. And yeah, so once it's acknowledged, it just kind of dissolves. So that was something that I found for myself. So now to tackle the actual lonely bit, which is the loneliness. So here I am on my yoga mat, you know, thinking that I'm being open and receptive to feeling it like I was advised to. And I found that I kept having the itch to reach for the self-help book that I had been reading at the time. It was a very good book, but I just thought, like, okay, I think I was trying to console myself by being like, okay, I'm being productive and I'm helping myself, so let's take this book and let's read it. I'm helping myself, aren't I? But no, was I really? I was not. So I was actually using that mask of productivity as a distraction from really fully feeling that loneliness. You know, like if I'm productive, I would feel less lonely. That was kind of my reasoning, at least. So yeah, again, it was that usual pattern of wanting to uplift myself and bring myself to a fuller state so that I don't have to look at these darker depths. Anyways, so when I realized that, I put the book down and I was like, okay, fine, let's just be still, let's do nothing, let's literally just exist and see what happens. And yeah, I was just paying attention to the energetic shifts that were flowing through my body. A very good friend of mine once told me that it takes 15 seconds for a wave of feeling to fully flow and run through the whole body. Thanks, Fiona, by the way. So, and I found that to be quite true. Maybe the 15-second waves might come at different frequencies depending on whatever it is that we're trying to get over. But I've been finding that that's pretty true. Like, fully feeling an emotion for 15 seconds, that does allow it to pass clearly through the body. So this was what I did, and as I felt the feeling of loneliness start to open up more and more inside my body, that pain that I was afraid of for so long, to the point that afraid of and like ashamed of for so long, turned out to be okay. Like, it was really just a soft pain. And I read somewhere that the deeper pain that seems so scary is actually just a soft pain compared to the bigger, harder pain of not wanting to fully face ourselves and face and integrate our shadows and be kind to them. So I was thinking of that a lot as I was like facing this soft pain, because I'm like, oh, it's actually not that bad. Like, the loneliness is here, but I'm feeling it, and it's like not the best, obviously, but it feels expansive to like step into this territory of being comfortable with it. It's kind of mind-blowing. So yeah, that is my first method to dealing with loneliness, just feeling it all the way to release it, and feeling it while doing nothing else. I feel like that was the important key for me, and being curious about like where it's going in my body, and not switching off that analytical, judgmental, logical mind. Yeah, putting aside the stories. And also one other thing that really helped me through that process was I put on this Divine Mother song that I just like randomly searched up on Spotify. This is just an extra bit. I happened to be reading Autobiography of a Yogi earlier during that day, and it was telling a story about this like master yogi who was so fully committed to the Divine Mother. And the Divine Mother being referred to is just an aspect of the all-permeating cosmos or the universe. And I just intuitively felt like I needed to be held by that during that moment, during that transition, that whole process. And it was just a memory that came to my mind of like being in nature and being among the shadows of trees and feeling so held while I'm in one of my like heavier moods or emotions. And I do find that every time I, even in my mind, transport myself to a place of greenery, of like anywhere in nature that feels safe, I do feel really healed and held. And the Divine Mother and her essence can most evidently be found in any or all parts of nature. Well, she is nature. So yeah, I had an intuitive message that I am needing this energy right now as I'm feeling tender and facing my wound, facing these soft pains. I felt like the Divine Mother energy wanted to hold me. And so simple action I did was I just searched Divine Mother on Spotify, and I found one of the songs. I think I wrote it down here. It's called Devi Prayer, Devi, Devi Prayer by Craig Pruis and Ananda. Yeah, so that's what I happened to put on. It was like a 20-minute long audio and just like singing, and it was just the most nourishing ever. Like, it was so healing to just like absorb all of that while I was tenderly like allowing myself to be held while facing my wound. And it's so funny because I actually like fell asleep on the yoga mat while doing that, because I think I felt way too cozy and way too nurtured and just so held, and like knowing that everything is okay and being so comforted knowing that loneliness is so okay and it's not even like a negative thing anymore. It's just something that I'm integrating as of into the more holistic part of my being. And so yeah, I fell asleep twice actually. I woke up and then the song was still playing and it just was just lulling me to sleep, so I went back to sleep. And I woke up and I felt amazing. So yeah, that was something that really helped me, and I will never again not discourage myself from feeling a heavy emotion all the way. And it is just so powerful. And being tender with myself was so powerful, and I even felt as a result my self-esteem was built more rock solidly because I wasn't afraid anymore of this part of myself, and I was able to fully embrace it and be almost proud of it. And yeah, I was able to show up in my day-to-day life ever since then as a more integrated version of myself, because I was more accepting of my shadow aspects, which I at first found to be scary, but turns out that they're not that scary. It's just a soft pain to look at. It's scary from a distance. It's scary when it's like veiled by the dark and by the unknown, but I feel like once I peered into it, it was fine. So the second method that I like to use whenever I'm feeling lonely, which I find to be very effective, is I remember a lesson taught to me by this book called Hands of Light by Barbara Brennan. She is a world-renowned healer, and she actually used to be a physicist at NASA and during her earlier years of living, and then later on she became a healer, and she used her quantum physics knowledge to do research on the human energy field, and all her work is cross-diagnosed by surgeons. So that's just a little bit of a background and context. I'm in love with her work, so that's why I'm sharing. Anyways, her book, Hands of Light, I learned that the abandonment wound that some of us may come into this world having, and it could be either exacerbated from childhood experiences or created during the childhood experience. So in her book, the abandonment wound is associated very closely with something called the oral structure or oral character, which is a character structure that some people walk around carrying a lot more heavily than others, depending on their childhood or whatever they experienced during childhood that might have exacerbated a trauma or created trauma. Anyway, long story short, I learned that people who carry this oral character within them very heavily tend to seek their fulfillment from or their vitality, their life force from another person's core, instead of feeling the full aliveness, the force of their aliveness within their own core. And the result of this would be a feeling of nobody is at home. At home as in your being. Nobody's at your core. Nobody's in this core, in this being, in this home. There's no one here. So that's kind of the feeling that might be common for people with the oral character or with abandonment wounds. And when I first learned that, it resonated so much for me, like almost literally, because when I first read that, I flashed back to a time about 3 or 4 years ago when I just finished like a beautiful summer hangout with some friends that I really love. And the moment I got home, I was like, wow, like this like mini dark cloud is about to like burst over me. Like it's just like hanging at the periphery of my awareness, because I didn't know it, but I was feeling like so alone and so lonely, because I had left that wonderful group of friends with wonderful energy, and now I'm returning to like my home and in my room where I was like by myself, and like yeah, literally I felt like there was no one home, like no one's home. And the technique to countering that is actually to tell yourself that I am here, I am home. And this practice has actually improved things so much for me. Like every time when I feel lonely, I realize that I'm not feeling the aliveness of my core enough. Like I'm not tapping into the truth that I am life force itself. It's flowing through this vessel and this whole being. And so just kind of putting my hands or a hand on my core, which is the center of my being, it's kind of like at your heart center, in between your heart center, the solar plexus. So not really at the heart, but like here, just in the middle of, I don't know where this is, like the bottom of your sternum, I'm not sure. Anyway, it's kind of like around here, and feeling that core and trying to tap into its power and affirming to myself that I am here, I am home, like I am with me. And you know the concept of like, be your own best friend first, be your own lover first, like that's so hard, that's so easy to verbalize, but I found that it's much harder to feel and apply in a tangible way. And I feel like this is the most tangible way that has helped me the most so far, because this way I really feel my own presence. I'm presencing myself. It is an illusion that nobody's home, because like here I am, I'm here. And if that feels good to you and you want to go deeper, one practice that I always do, which makes me feel so just good and so filled, is besides the core work, I connect to the energy center right here below your navel, your belly button. It's not your sacral chakra, it's the dantian. It's an energy center. I forgot the exact definition, but essentially feeling into that, like maybe even pressing into it with like bird beak fingers, and focusing on that, and standing with feet hips width distance apart, and kind of imagining a funnel or a channel or a tube or whatever, like drop from that dantian energy center and move all the way down into the earth, past the whatever floors or whatever building you may be in, and down past the gravel of the concrete building, past the many layers of the earth, until it reaches the molten lava core of Mother Earth. And feeling that connection, whenever I feel that connection, I always feel like a slight jolt in my body, my being. It's like, oh, here I am, I'm here, and like Mother Earth is also here. And just allowing myself to be filled up by the earth, knowing that it is all abundant and it is so able to provide for me in all the ways that I could ever want or need. And so kind of just like filling myself up with whatever that the earth has to offer me at that time and whatever I'm needing, feeling and visualizing that too, bringing up all the nutrients that you need, that I need, and having it fill my whole being. Affirming to myself that I have enough, I'm always supported, and I am here. Like I'm here and the earth is here as well. The third method I love using for dealing with feelings of loneliness is really just connecting with and talking with my spirit guides, my spirit team, guardian angels, my ancestors, and they're always around me and always around each of us, and I just forget so easily. And yeah, all it takes really is just a simple reminder to be like, oh wait, I've got these entities around me, this support that's coming to me from realms other than the 3D, other than the physical earthly realm. And just that awareness is enough for me to feel the awareness of their presence is enough for me to feel their support and their upliftment and encouragement, and sometimes even just feeling or visualizing one of my angel's hands just like resting on my shoulders is such a big comfort. And I can just be reminded that I am never ever alone, like ever, like no one ever is. And these last two methods, calling on my spirit team and telling myself that I am here, that I am home, not only is comforting to me, but it actually like pushes me straight away into a zone of fun, into like a fun mood of like, oh, like I'm here, like, you know, like a playmate, like when a child is lonely and they want to playmate, and when they find a friend to play with, they're like so happy and so excited. Like that's literally how I feel when I remember that I am here, like my core is here and so alive for me, myself, and I, and my spirit team is also here. Like I just feel so like excited. I'm like, oh my god, fun, like everyone's here to play, like let's party. So yeah, I find it cool that it lifts my mood to that extent, because it instantly just like rips away the illusion of me being alone, because how could I possibly ever be alone? Anyways, that's all I have to share about how I personally deal with loneliness, and I hope this has helped you in any way, shape, or form, or at least provided you some form of entertainment or amusement. These are really just things that have helped to heal me a lot and contributed so much to my well-being, so how could I not share them? Anyways, thank you so much for listening, really appreciate it, and yeah, see you soon. Thank you.